Hi, thanks for joining me again. I'm David Hatch, and today I'll be talking about the differences between leadership and management. This is one of the great debates in the business management field, so I'm also going to be considering the question of whether these differences actually matter. Hello, and thanks again for joining me today. The question of whether it's better to lead or to manage has been something of a raging debate for decades now. But for me, the question has now become a bit redundant, replaced by a more relevant question. Does it matter? So, to try to answer both questions, in today's video, I'll be talking about some of the key arguments in the debate and trying to identify what actually does matter. To start to answer the question, perhaps it is best to first consider what a leader is and what a manager is. If there's anything that I've learned so far in my own leadership journey, it is that trying to define a leader in a short, pithy way is next to impossible. Leadership and what a leader looks like can take any number of forms. But at the heart of what it means to be a leader is, I think, is a focus on people and a grounding in the team, in providing an example and moving them forwards or towards a shared goal via whatever leadership method is chosen. That's, of course, reductive and a quite flawed way of explaining a very complex idea, but by now, hopefully, you'll have a sense of the wider approach to leadership that I'm all about, and you understand it in greater detail than how I've just described it, assuming you've watched any of my previous videos. A manager, on the other hand, is usually much more specific. The term relates to a job title or a role within an organisation, usually with some responsibility for managing or overseeing something, whether that be a team of people, a project, or a piece of technology. If we think about this in terms of skill sets, leadership and management are both skills. They each represent a different aspect of a business or an organisation. So in terms of the great debate, which is better, what's the difference? I'm going to draw on an old article I wrote from a couple of years back now to try to address this, where I examined via a few examples from social media what the answer was to this question or what it could be. Because this is such a long-standing debate, I think we've reached the point now where the LinkedIn posts and the management memes have been recycled enough that I can still talk about those same examples I used over a year ago. And certainly the ones I've seen more recently are usually a rehash of these similar arguments. So the first example is the phrase, managers do things right and leaders do the right things. And that one's been knocking around for quite a long time now. And there is a certain logic to it or a certain appeal to it. It's quite a concise and enlightening statement, or it feels like it on the face of it. And it does speak to one of the most important concepts in contemporary leadership, and that is the ethical dimension. This is the idea captured within modern approaches that the effective leader behaves ethically. So as one example, the idea of authentic leadership describes leaders who inspire trust through self-awareness, through high emotional intelligence, and through genuine transparency about their own performance, opinions, decision-making, or motivations. These kinds of leaders are fair-minded, taking ownership of their mistakes and sharing responsibility for the mistakes of others, while also showing the courage to challenge decisions or actions and defend their people. Finally, authentic leaders are concerned with doing the moral good, and they seek to do the right thing, to borrow the phrase from this particular one, in any given strategy or situation. It is true that in these theories of leadership, there is an explicit connection to ethics, moral good, and doing the right thing. But that doesn't mean that a manager is automatically going to do the wrong thing or act in an immoral way. Managers are still people, and people, by and large, choose to do the right thing. So, while we can probably see where this one comes from, it's also pretty clearly an oversimplification. The next one is, anyone can be a manager, not everyone can be a leader. I totally disagree with this one. Both leadership and management rely on skills and knowledge, not talents. The skills required for either one can definitely be learned. The successful company in this day and age is the one that ensures employees have the opportunities and the tools to learn new skills and improve on existing ones, and that absolutely includes the essential skills of leadership and management. With regard to developing new leaders, I also like to think that we've now moved beyond the idea that leadership or any other skills-based practice is either something you're born with or not. It's not a genetic trait like having good hair. Leaders can be made, but they're not born. Our third and final example in this one is manager is a title, leader is a calling. It is true that a manager tends to sit within some sort of structure, and they become a manager by virtue of their title, position, and status within that setting. Whereas a leader doesn't necessarily require any of these in order to practice their craft. There's a great example of something called everyday leadership in a 2010 talk by a guy called Drew Dudley, which shows how it is possible to make a difference through simple day-to-day interactions, and how leadership doesn't have to be this kind of grand and glorious idea and something that's aspirational. It can be a daily practice. And I'll leave a link for that video in the description below if you're interested. I really do recommend watching it. Another important idea to consider here is whether a good employee is automatically going to be a good manager, and whether being a good manager makes you a good leader and vice versa. In my opinion, the answer to that is no and no. Contrary to traditional ideas about an individual's traits and characteristics, as I said earlier, both leadership and management are skills that can be taught, and forward-looking companies will ensure they have the training and opportunities in place for their employees to learn such vital skills. There's a problem known as the accidental manager, where people are promoted to leadership or management positions by virtue of being good at their current job, even though that may have none of the same skills involved. And their companies then don't provide them with access to leadership or management training to go along with that promotion, and they just sort of expect them to suddenly understand how to lead and or manage people. The result of that kind of promotion tends to be a huge productivity drain and often a detrimental outcome for the company, for the manager involved, and for the people that they were responsible for. And that's a pretty unfair position to be put in as well. Most likely in those situations, that unfairly promoted manager will also cop the blame for the bad results. But do you think it's reasonable to expect someone to do a job without teaching them how? Can you name any other role in the modern workplace where you're expected to be able to do it from day one without any training just because you were good at your last job? Okay, so pretty obviously that's one of my triggers. I'll move on. Why is this whole leader versus manager thing a flawed debate? The reason why the debate is completely flawed is that they aren't mutually exclusive roles. In fact, if you ask me, I'd say that to be a successful leader or manager in a modern business, you do need to possess the skills of both. If you want to lead a successful company and do it well, then you'd better have good management and organisational skills too. If you want to be successful as a manager, then you're going to need to have decent leadership skills to get the most from the team of people that you will inevitably need to do that. Not only are they not mutually exclusive, they're actually super complementary and equally essential. So the debate is flawed because it assumes one or the other is the right answer, when in fact the right answer is both. I'd also point out that the way the debate is often conducted does a huge disservice to both leaders and managers, but especially to managers and management as a skill set. There's quite a lot of these oversimplified graphics going around, and you see them posted on LinkedIn and Facebook and all sorts of other places. And these things, usually they have a leader on one side and a manager on the other side, and they're oversimplified, and they're talking about how leaders are the great and the good, and they're presented as the idealistic superheroes in any organisation, whilst managers are bad, boring, bean counters who don't care about people, only about results. The truth is that you can have good and bad leaders or managers. I know I've worked with people in senior leadership positions that were truly terrible leaders, and brought only discord and discontent to the teams they led. But I've also worked with managers that had excellent leadership skills and really cared about their people. Similarly, I know leaders who are also brilliant managers and administrators. And on the other hand, managers who are so disorganised that they lose the glasses on their face. Oh, mine are still there. So to pigeonhole people based on their role or their title or the way they describe themselves is, again, reductive and not at all reflective of the real world. There's a lesson there about assumptions, but also about the importance of training. These are skills that can be taught, and companies should be providing opportunities for development to ensure that people are adequately trained to perform the roles they're expected to do, just like they would for any other job. So as far as the question of leader versus manager, or leadership versus organisational ability, etc., does it actually matter? No. That's the way I see it, anyway. So I hope you've enjoyed watching today. Please do leave a comment and let me know what you think about this debate, and perhaps let me know which side of it you fall on, or if you're in the same position as me, which is pretty much in the middle. And you can also hit the like button to show your support. Next week, I'll be talking about what leaders can do to better support their remote workers, which is, I guess, pretty relevant these days. So do hit the subscribe button as well, so you'll be notified when I upload that next video. And if you'd like to learn more about the leadership training, coaching and mentoring programs that I provide, then you can join our mailing list by visiting www.leading-with-integrity.co.uk/join. That's a bit of a mouthful, so I've also put a link in the description below to make it a bit easier for you. Being on that mailing list will bring you a ton of value with additional content that's not available anywhere else, as well as some information about leadership, special offers, and links to some of the exclusive programs that are available. So hit the link and sign up today. And that's all from me. Stay safe. Thanks again for watching, and be a leader, not a boss.